What a show coming up. NWA 74. It's the NWA 74th anniversary show. And it will be August 27th and 28th at the historic Chase in St. Louis. You remember wrestling at the Chase going back in the day? That was so cool. And now it's cool again because the NWA is doing their thing. Billy Corgan, thank you so much. Just what can you tell us, first of all, about this big two-night pay-per-view event?
Well, yeah, I mean, geez, you're talking about a full card over 2 nights, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 plus matches over 2 nights. We have Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch being the champion in the main event of night 2. Main event of night 1 is Camille versus Taya Valkyrie. 2 great female combatants, Camille being the champion now for over a year. So, yeah, I mean, it's I don't even know where to begin. There's so many matches, inter-promotional matches. I think eight belts on the line in total. 9, maybe.
It will be such an interesting night, 2 nights. And I'm curious too, Billy, what was the decision-making process to, hey, all right, let's have this big event, but where are we going to hold it? Hey, let's do it in St. Louis at the Chase.
You know, that's interesting because no one had been allowed to do wrestling at the Chase for 37 years. And we put the feelers out and they came back right away and said yes, which was shocking because we didn't think it was possible. The only thing I've ever heard is that the person who runs the entire hotel group for the Chase is a fan of mine, and that was why they were willing to make the exception. So if that's true, I'm all about it. Very great honor to be back in that ballroom there, especially given the history wrestling at the Chase. And yeah, so this is our 2nd year in a row. Now we'll be back doing anniversary shows. Last year we did an all-female pay-per-view called Empower. Night 1 and the night 2 was a straight up card. This is 2 nights, including obviously the top female talent. So we're bursting at the seams with talent. We have more wrestlers than we could put on the card. So it's the best of the best that we have to offer, and we're very excited about it.
Billy, what do you enjoy most about what you're doing now? Because you've been a pro wrestling fan for a long time, and now you're involved in the business. You're president, you're running shows, you're setting things up. Just what has it been like for you to be involved with the NWA?
I think the most satisfying thing is to bring back this great organization to international prominence. When I bought the NWA about 4 or 5 years ago, people wrote articles and said he literally bought nothing. He bought 3 worthless letters, I believe was what the greatest quote of them all. I, of course, knew the NWA had a value, but did it have value in the current wrestling economy? That was certainly debatable. And so bringing it back, rebuilding piece by piece, brick by brick, restoring the great historical legacy of the NWA, but also, creating lineal champions, a toughness to the product that is very, goes beyond any generational thing. In essence, the NWA is the toughest wrestling promotion in the world. It's been its historical antecedent, and so that's who we are. And so to bring that back onto the grandest stages, to be part of the bigger conversation in professional wrestling is very satisfying.
Now, people can watch the NWA weekly, NWA Power, and it's available, I believe, on YouTube as well as FITE TV. Am I right with that, Billy?
Yeah, we're behind a paywall, so if you're a subscriber, basically if you buy the equivalent of 2 pay-per-views, you get 6 pay-per-views a year as part of the package. So it's a fantastic financial deal. So I encourage anybody to buy that package if you want to watch the pay-per-view. That way you get our show Power on its first run on Tuesdays. Friday it goes up on YouTube, and then Saturday we have another show called NWA USA, which is on FITE and YouTube simultaneously. So if you just want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we're all about that. That's all free. And then, but the subscriber deal for FITE, FITE, which is a digital sports platform, that's a great deal too.
Mike Weber and the crew, they do an awesome job at FITE. It's amazing what they've been able to do and create. And it's interesting because with this, how much of an influence, how much do you think that the advent of technology, social media, and everything involved there has helped the NWA?
I think the NWA wouldn't exist right now if it wasn't for the digital world. It's allowed me to rebuild it, market it, rebrand it, and actually pivot it in a different direction. Where in traditional media, I'd have to go out and convince somebody that this August brand had value to a very mainstream audience. And by the way, who's going to put up all these millions and millions of dollars? WCW, when it went out of business in around 2000, when the McMahons bought it, I think it was losing $150 million a year. It might have been 180. That was a traditional model, which, the McMahons have pivoted off of to a certain degree now, doing digital and terrestrial broadcasting stuff. we're at this point, we're mostly all digital, and I think you see where it can work in this ecosystem. In essence, the whole world is your audience, and if you can draw them, they'll come. No better example of it last year was when we ran our Empower show. We trended worldwide #2. That's for everything, not just sports. That was worldwide #2. So that tells you an international audience was watching. Hundreds of thousands of people around the world were watching our product simultaneously. That's a big, big deal.
And with that show, it's such a cool dynamic because you took that show and sort of gave it an old school look, an old school feel with the podium and the announcers standing and just the ambiance of the area where you were shooting the show. A little bit of thought process there. And how cool is that? That's so cool. It's different.
Sure. Well, I lamented the fact that the studio wrestling format had gone away somewhere in the 90s, because that's what I grew up on. And when I was working for TNA, I actually pitched Dixie Carter on the idea of doing a TNA show based around the studio wrestling look. And I could never get any traction on it. So when I bought the NWA, that was my first thought was, look, let's bring back studio wrestling. It's a very economical way to present wrestling. And so we're able to present world-class wrestling in a very sort of intimate atmosphere. It's sort of like, when I play a club gig or something, there's a certain vibe that you get that's very, very different than a big show. We certainly want to run big shows. The NWA74 pay-per-views at the Chase, you'll have a lot of people in there each night. It'll look more like a traditional big show. But our weekly shows are based in the studio format. And there's something sort of really interesting about it because certainly nobody else in the world right now is doing it at the level that we're doing it at. And it's part of what makes us a sort of signature in this world. People get confused and they think that we're a throwback company. We're not a throwback company. We're just willing to use whatever we need to do to make our message and transition the NWA from what is considered a historical brand to a modern brand that it can actually compete at the highest levels.
The action itself is modern. You've got a mix of everything with the NWA, but that in itself, when you see the talent there, you've got some old school talent, but you got a lot of new school talent as well. It's a nice crossover, a nice mix. And I'm curious for you, because you mentioned Impact Wrestling, how much of working for Impact Wrestling helped you in developing the NWA and just moving forward and learning about the behind the scenes of the business, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, despite my sort of legal and personal issues with TNA, which are now thankfully all in the past, TNA now Impact Wrestling, I got a first-class education in how to produce wrestling television. They had been producing television at that point for somewhere in the neighborhood of about 14, 15 years. And so, one of the first jobs I got was to produce segments. And so I would go off in the corner with different talents and shoot the pre-tapes. I was involved in the booking committee, so I got to book and also understand the economics of how to put a lot of wrestlers on television in a given day. There were times when we would shoot Universal Studios with TNA where a particular wrestler would go out in front of the crowd 3 or 4 times in a particular night. And that was difficult because obviously the first time they come through the curtain, the crowd goes crazy. The 4th time they go through the curtain, the crowd's sort of like, yay, good to see you for the 4th time. So you have to really learn the dynamics of that. And so I got a first-class education. I'm very grateful for that.
Billy, frontman for the Smashing Pumpkins. That is cool in itself. And you're involved big time in pro wrestling. And now you're running the NWA. I'm curious, how does Billy split his time between NWA and Smashing Pumpkins? Because, hey, you're going to be in South Florida. You're going to be here October 8th at Hard Rock Live in South Florida, Smashing Pumpkins. Want to throw that in, Billy?
Thank you. Well, put it this way. We're on my phone right now, where I'd show you. Let's pretend this is a phone. So I'm recording Smashing Pumpkin songs. You have to stop for a minute. There's a technical issue. I run to the phone. There's a bunch of NWA emails. Put the phone down. Go back to working on Smashing Pumpkins music. That's pretty much my whole day. You just make time. I'm probably when I'm in the studio, I'm probably 80 hours plus a week in the studio, and then NWA is probably 60 hours a week at this point. So my work week's, I guess that's about 140 hours. That sounds about right. Yeah, it's two full-time jobs for sure.
2 full-time jobs, but when you love something and love 2 things, I guess the hours don't really matter.
They do to my little kids. But I'll tell you a cool thing. I was looking at some NWA promotional materials, and my son, who's 6 years old, looked at a picture and said, "Oh, that's Ricky Morton." And so I thought, NWA legend Ricky Morton, who's still wrestling at, I think it's 65, 66 years young. I think it's so cool that my son knows who Ricky Morton is. And as a cool thing, we sent Ricky a little video message, and my son was like, "You know Ricky Morton?" I was like, "Of course I know Ricky Morton. I work with Ricky Morton." My son just could not believe that this guy that he sees on TV, that he just loves seeing Ricky Morton wrestle, that we could send him a message. So that's a cool part of the job.
Hey, what also is cool about that is Kerry Morton, his son, on night one of the big NWA 74 versus Homicide for the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, we run an interesting thing. Our junior heavyweight division is a 225 weight limit, which is a lot higher than that weight limit traditionally is. So we have very bruising, physical junior heavyweight champions. And so Kerry, certainly a bright star, certainly a big future. So this is his first, I think, really big international opportunity to title. So I look forward to seeing that match. It has the capability of stealing the show for sure.
Do you find you have any crossover fans between Smashing Pumpkins and NWA? Do you find it's two different markets?
My friend, if more of my music fans love wrestling, I would be so happy. It just doesn't work out that way. I tend to attract a bunch of sad, goth, lonely people to my music. I'm joking, because if you're a fan, you know why I'm joking. Now, not everybody gets it. I think the good part is when I first started doing it about 10 years ago in the independent circuit in wrestling, a lot of fans just thought I'd lost my mind. And they thought it was just some sort of new thing that I was into for a year and that it would go away. Now people are very respectful. So what I hear most from everybody is, wrestling's not for me. I love your music. I'm a huge fan. You changed my life. Wrestling's not for me. But because of you, I gave this pay-per-view a chance, or I watched something, or, I love it. Or, what was funny is I watched it and I it's not for me. I'm not a wrestling fan, but my husband loves it now. Now he's watching. So I hear that a lot, and that feels really cool. So I'm appreciative of anybody who's willing to give it that opportunity. But certainly, trust me, if the numbers were more easily readable from Smashing Pumpkins fan base over to the NWA, I would be a happy camper.
Well, in lieu with that, I guess I'm figuring that all the Smashing Pumpkin members have to be NWA fans.
They have no choice. They can't be in the band. See, that's how it goes.
Hey, Billy, speaking of music, because obviously that's also been a huge part of your life and your career. And entrance music is so important to professional wrestling. You can go back to the days of the Fabulous Freebirds with Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts.
Yeah.
And what they brought to the table as far as entrance music. I'm curious for you. Do you write entrance music for wrestlers? Do you do that now? Have you done that in the past?
I have done a little bit of it. Mostly we've used songs that are already exist in my catalog. Yeah, I love it. I think it's such a cool thing. And we have a great person that does the music for the NWA when it's needed, which is Sherry Shaw. Staria is her name, SSTARAIA. Yeah, but the thing is we don't we only use themes on pay-per-views. Power in USA, we do not use themes. It was very controversial actually when we first did it, and there were wrestlers that didn't want to work for us because they weren't given entrance themes. They were actually mad, and I said, "I'm sorry, we're just not going to do entrance themes here. I don't have time for it." And so that it is what it is. It's part of what makes Power such a kind of crazy, awkward, beautiful thing that it is.
And I'm also curious because now I'm going way back in the day. I remember George Thorogood and Destroyers did a song called Hand Jive. And on MTV, it was all like mid-Atlantic, mid-South based pro wrestling video clips with JYD, Boogie Woogie, Jimmy Valiant.
Wow, you're taking me back there.
Oh my God, it was really so cool. And I'm just curious, from your standpoint, do you ever think of, maybe you have, I don't know, but do music video of anything NWA and put in a little music video together?
We have at different times. In fact, I was just trying to get a very historic track from a Hall of Fame rock and roll band. I wasn't able to pull the deal off. And I love stuff like that. Honestly, behind the scenes, it usually has more to do with rights and economics than anything. But I'm all about it. I mean, that's my life. I'm just not always in the financial position to throw around that kind of money. Because I, as a musician, I get those requests. Oh, they want to use your song on I just got a request yesterday for a show for Disney Plus or something, you know. So I'm usually in that position, so I understand the economics, so it doesn't bother me. But it's not always easy, you know, when you want to use some song that you think is so brilliant, and you know, they ask for $1 gazillion.
Hey, Billy, do you have any favorite entrance music from any of the pro wrestlers that you enjoyed watching?
Yeah, I kind of like them all. I mean, my favorites are when they seem to go with the character. You know, standard issue rock, you know, Jarhead rock seems to be what most people's themes are for wrestlers in the 21st century. I'm a fan when the theme feels a little bit different. I'm trying to think of one that comes to mind. Tyrus just sent me a new one yesterday. That's sort of like a rap rock type of thing that I think is going to be pretty cool.
And speaking of Tyrus, I think this is what an unusual and eclectic talent in Tyrus. What he does. Every once in a while, I catch him on Gutfeld, on Fox, talking politics, talking about news, which is interesting. I'm curious, Billy, could you see him running for a political office someday?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he'd want to. I've never talked to. We generally don't talk about politics when we're together. We mostly talk about family and wrestling. But here's the thing, you know, Tyrus, super smart, super talented guy, right? And I knew that when I was working with him at TNA, and he was basically just being a bodyguard for some of the main acts. Very underappreciated, undervalued. And so it's no surprise to me, as somebody who knew him before all that he's gone under that level of success. And now he's a best-selling author. It's not surprising in the least if you know him as a person.
I so enjoy what NWA is doing, and I so enjoy this NWA74 card, which is 2 nights, August 27th and 28th at the historic Chase, Wrestling at the Chase in St. Louis. I just love saying that because it was such a big time, big event back in the day, weekly, so much fun. Sam Muchnick, I mean, just the great days of St. Louis and the wrestling there. And now the NWA, Billy, you're bringing it back. Your whole team is bringing it back. A lot of women are involved in the show as well, which is very cool. We've seen the rise of women's wrestling and the evolution of that. And you've got a tournament coming up as well on night 1, I believe.
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm curious what your thoughts on some of the talent that you have in the NWA. I know someone I know, Kylan King from the Florida Indies, has really done very well for herself and now will be involved in this tournament as well. And Genocide is another who's just an unusual talent. But some of your thoughts on some of the women involved in the NWA.
Well, when I was working in the Indies 10 years ago, I used to say, I remember saying it to a guy who was interviewing me for Forbes magazine, of all things, that the future of professional wrestling really was going to be a women's revolution. And so I'm glad that that prophecy turned out to be true. Wrestling has gotten too lazy at not doing a good job of marketing to half the population of the world, which is obviously female. Women enjoy wrestling just as much as most people, and I think what turned off a lot of the women through the years was the portrayal of such misogynistic stuff. The NWA has very little of that, and if we do, it's usually a character thing. It's not you know, it's not to portray some out of bounds thing that's, you know, better for another age. So what I like to think of when I think of the women of the NWA division, whether you're talking about Max, Kylan King, Taya Valkyrie, Chelsea Green, Camille, our champion, Genocide, you know, you're looking at such tough, physical, great professional athletes. And they bring it, man. They bring it. Like, they bring it in many ways, maybe more intensely than the men do. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to present that as a promoter. I think that is very much long overdue, and certainly of the 21st century. I believe that people are attracted to the best of anything. You know, if you find yourself watching the College World Series, you know, whether it's you know, male or female, you find yourself getting into the spirit of competition. You want to know that you're watching the best and that the best are going for it, and they're pushing themselves to a level that maybe they didn't know they had. And so that's what I think that you see now with the women of the NWA. They are pushing themselves to historical new highs. And I think the Mildred Burks of the world, you know, I'm lucky enough to own the original Mildred Burke belt from the 1930s. I think they would be proud to see that what they started so long ago and what they fought for, when literally women wrestling in a ring was illegal in most of the states in America. including New York and Illinois, where I live, Los Angeles. I think they'd be very proud to see what these women are bringing to the table at this point.
Hey, you mentioned Mildred Burke, and that event will be part of night one, where it's the Burke Invitational Gauntlet for a chance at the NWA Women's World Championship match later on down the road.
What happens? Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
The winner of Taya Valkyrie and Camille being the champion, that winner will face the winner of the Burke Invitational night 2. So Camille likes to complain because she says, "I'm so good, Billy makes me wrestle twice." But she has to get through Taya Valkyrie, and if she does, of course, if Taya wins, they have to face the winner of somebody who's been through a very bruising gauntlet, 10 women gauntlet the night before. So very, very physical. I mean, you won't see tougher wrestling on the female side than you'll see over those 2 nights.
And I'm going to read off, and we'll wrap this up, just some of the talent. And if I get anything wrong, please correct me. But you've got people like Bully Ray, and you've got people like Matt Cardona, EC3, some of the people you're familiar with in Impact Wrestling. You've got one of my favorites, the Commonwealth Connection, Doug Williams and Harry Smith, also involved, Father James Mitchell. You mentioned the championship matches, a couple of them. You've got Davey Richards, Tom Lattimore, Colby Carino, Caprice Coleman, who's also an excellent commentator, by the way. Enjoy his work on commentary with some other groups and all. But it's just, and on and on and on. The Hex, Allison Kay and Marty Bell, 2 fantastic female talents. It's just, what incredible 2 nights, Billy. Hey, what is, I guess, the most challenging when you're putting an event like this together and having all that talent? And I'm sure there maybe have been other talent that you couldn't use because they want to be a part of this historic event.
Yeah, I think it's trying to find the balance between your own roster, the people that are loyal to you and you're loyal to them, and making sure that they have an opportunity to perform on the biggest stage of the year, and also look into the marketplace and see who you can bring in to create sort of that once in a lifetime attraction. For example, Davey Richards, defending an MLW belt for the first time on an NWA show is fantastic. He's defending the National Openweight Championship against Thrillbilly Silas, who's made a sort of total sensation coming in the NWA with the manager Pollo Del Mar. So it's trying to find that balance of sort of what you're doing in-house against what's available to you in the open marketplace. And we certainly love working with other promotions.
Well, we'll wrap it up with this. Well, before I do, actually, because you mentioned the Mildred Burke belt, I think that is so cool. I'm wondering, Billy, have you met Dan Lambert of American Top Team? He's a huge pro wrestling fan. He's appeared on pro wrestling shows.
He has some of the greatest belts ever made.
Yes.
I know that much. I don't know Dan, but I know that much about him. Trust me, I wish I had about half the belts he has.
Oh, he just got one of the trophies, the Bruiser Brody trophy that he won in New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe it was. But it's like this huge thing, and Brody holds it with one hand. And Dan said when he got it, it was like he's trying to hold it with the 2 hands. But that was now another addition to his collection, which is just incredible. You've got to get an invite to see the room. That's all I'm going to say. Somewhere down the road, Billy.
Is it known where Dan lives, or?
Well, I don't want to give that all away, but maybe. But the thing is, when you're down here in October and you're going to be in Hollywood, South Florida for the Hard Rock Live, maybe you can make some time and get with Dan Lambert and try to put it together and go over to the house and see. Oh, it's at the house.
I would love that. I would love that.
That would be so cool. So anyway, all right, Billy, thank you so much for your time. Anything you want to say in closing about the shows, about NWA74, fans, how they can check it out, or if they want to watch YouTube for other events?
Yeah, just go to FITE. You can pre-order the event now, and if you buy the package, which is basically buying the 2-night pay-per-view, you get all our pay-per-views for a year. So it's such a great deal. August 27th, 28th, world-class card. History will absolutely be made. That I can guarantee you.
Thank you so much, Billy.
Thank you, my friend. Talk soon.